Welcome to A Well-Designed Business with your host, LuAnn Nigara. LuAnn has a lifetime of experience building a multi-million-dollar business with her husband and cousin, and she knows the challenges you face in your interior design business. LuAnn brings you real-life answers to your most pressing problems, as well as practical strategies to explode your interior design business. So, let's get to the business of interior design.
Hi, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. This is Power Talk Friday. If this is your first time listening to the show, welcome. You have joined us in a series of episodes featuring guests and topics related to the Design Bloggers Conference that was held in LA, March 2017. So today is the second half of my presentation at the conference. The first half aired last Friday on Power Talk Friday number 165. So after listening to this show, you may want to go back and catch that episode. The order is not relevant, so it's fine. You can listen to this one and not worry about anything. And so here's what else happened. On Monday, we had Claire Stasek from Centered by Design, and she was an award winner at the conference. And we had Kelsey Gross this past Wednesday, who is also an award winner. And coming up on Monday, we have Amber Lewis, who was the opening keynote speaker. So all three of these interviews have some terrific advice for interior design bloggers, as well as interior designers in trying to run your firm and gain exposure, building audience, and working through Instagram. So we really very fortunate that these very smart women have shared their time with us. But today, I am going to continue on my part two of the things I learned from a well-designed business in this last year. So the fourth point that I brought up was be, do, have, not have, do, be. This was from Jim Riviello in episode 141. Jim Riviello says we need to change our way of thinking about things in order to be successful. Jim is in our industry. He is a business coach and the owner of Leadership X University. I came across his info while I was searching for a great Power Talk Friday guest. I'm only ever on the hunt for terrific guests to bring to you guys. And when I heard Jim explain that to be successful, we need to be, do, have, not have, do, be. And I heard that explanation. I was hooked, and we reached out and invited him to be on the show. Now, if you were at the actual conference, you listened to me and you watched me trip over this explanation because on the fly, I tried to relate it to bloggers, which was a darn shame because I shouldn't have done that. And it was a shame because I really do believe that this is a powerful way to think and to shift your focus and to create success for yourself and your business. So I'm going to try it again, and I'm going to try not to trip it up again. Jim explains that so many of us have a thought process that goes like this. One day, when I have more time, I will create more systems for my business and I'll document them. And then I'll be able to do everything in my business the right way. And then I will be a successful business leader and owner. And Jim says that this is not the way. He says this is backwards. We don't wait till we have something, then we can do something, and then we'll be something. He says we need to think about it like this. Today, I will be a smart leader and business owner, and I will do the systems and processes necessary to be efficient and profitable. And because of this, I have a successful business. So that's the way I should have described it. I should have stuck to that because that was the way I originally had it. And then I had that brilliant idea of trying to relate it to bloggers, and whoo, did that fall off the rails. Anyway, contemplate this. Think about the things that you are convincing yourself that you can only do and be when you have the next something. What are you rationalizing that you'll have and you'll create and you'll do when the next thing happens to you? Be that something, create that something, do it now, be it now. All righty. Now we move on to my number 5 point, which was cultivate and listen to your intuition. We had 6 guests, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guests that reflected this in their conversation with me on the show. One of the guests was Stacy Garcia. And Stacy was episode number 21. This is a really fun episode. I had an awesome conversation with her. Of course, I had a conversation with 168 people, let's be real. But anyway, In the conversation, Stacy mentioned how when she was young and she was working for another firm, and she's a surface designer, and they were coming up with textiles and pattern designs and things like that. And she was tasked with going to a vintage wallpaper and fabric dealer to take a look at the collections and see if maybe there was something that her company that she was working for might purchase, and they would use this as a jumping off point to create their next textile line. And so she looked through the collections and she found something that she really liked, and she brought it back and she pitched it to her bosses, and they were like, yeah, not so much. We don't like it. And Stacy expressed that she just had this voice that said, go buy the pieces. And the thing about that is if you think of Stacy Garcia now, wildly successful empire with multiple companies, that doesn't seem so significant. But this Stacy Garcia that made this decision was in her mid-20s, and she was just about to be married. And you know how it is in your mid-20s. It's not like you've got, this huge bank account going. But she said, the voice said, go buy the pieces. And so she walked in. And you really should go back and listen to the episode because it's pretty funny. She says she walks up to the gentleman and she says, well, my bosses aren't interested in buying it. She said, but I have a vision for them. I'd like to buy the pieces. Would you take a personal check? So it's really, you have to hear her tell. It's hysterical. That's episode 21. The fact is that it was a leap of faith. She said exactly, it was a leap of faith that I was ready to invest and I was ready to start my company. And that's what she did. And God help her, look at what she's created. It's really phenomenal. The next was episode 55 with Rachel Moriarty. So Rachel and I have become great friends since I first interviewed her on the podcast. And she shared a moment with me where she discussed how she was at the end of the summer and she was reviewing her work in the last several months, and she just wasn't happy. She wasn't happy with the amount of business that was in the pipeline. She wasn't happy with the way things were going. And she said, she just needed to do something to jumpstart it, to turn it around and make it take a new direction. And she had recently heard about Facebook Live, and the rest is history. I mean, I've told the story on the podcast before in episodes since then, because it is very significant. Here's somebody that hears about this Facebook Live. The whole world is starting to talk about it and buzz about it. But what do? We all go, oh my goodness. I mean, I'm still doing it. I don't want to get on camera. I'm not even shy. I'm just like kind of lazy about it, is the truth. I don't want to put my makeup on and do all this stuff. But Rachel just did it. And she set up a 30-day challenge for herself. And during that 30 days, she did other things. Now, let's be serious. She made connections and she interacted with people, but that she also put a call to action in her post, and she put a call to action in the text of her post so that would lead potential people back to her website. And once they're at her website, of course, she's got that all locked down. But it all started with a leap of faith, of listening to her intuition, of taking a chance. And I'm recording this in April of 2017. She started this 30-day challenge for herself in, I believe it was July or August of 2016. And the 30 days was working so well and building such buzz for her business that she didn't stop. She just converted it and called it Rachel's Daily Riffs. And it's really become a pipeline filler for her. And so I just applaud her for listening to her gut at that moment and doing something that really, truly turned the way her business is around. Another guest was episode number 128 with Grace McNamara. Grace is the owner of the IWCE conference and of the Window Visions magazine. And in her podcast episode, Grace explained how she was just 31 years old. She was the advertising director for the Industry Fabrics Association, which that association owned 4 magazines. And she was friends with, I think she said, the comptroller in the company. And that person shared with her that, you know what, I've heard that they're going to sell off 2 of these magazines, and you've always said you wanted to be an entrepreneur. I thought I would just give you this tip. And so she, was a little intrigued by it, nothing crazy. She said, but the next morning she walked into work, and whoever the powers that be was called her into the office and said, so I heard you want to buy the Window Coverings magazine. And she just looked at him. But the point of the story and the ending of the story was that in that conversation, he said, well, it's for sale. And if you want it, you have to buy it within 24 hours. You have 24 hours to make a move on this. And she said that she went home that night, and her husband talked all night long into the night. And she expressed that the one thing that was holding her back really was just a fear of, she had no idea how to run a magazine. I mean, it's a pretty decent and valid fear, I think I would say. But she had no idea how to be a magazine publisher. She didn't know the first thing about it. And she talked about how her and her husband talked long into the night about the possibilities and, could they work it out financially first? That was, discussed and handled off, off the table, that removed off the table. Then it just became, what would she do? What would she do? And she said that her husband first said something to her, that we all know that he didn't really truly, he meant it. I know he did, but we don't take it as lightly as he said it. So we lose the house and a couple of cars, Grace. How bad could it be? Right? But then she said that he also looked at her and said, Grace, if you walk away from this and someone else buys this magazine and makes a go of it, won't you be furious if you let this opportunity pass you by? And Grace explained how that sort of nudged her. And she also explained that what she understands being an entrepreneur is wanting the control and knowing you are going to do everything in your power to make it work. And so she followed her intuition and she followed her gut, and she purchased that magazine, and it's been more than 30 years, and it is wildly successful. And it is a force in our industry. It is a leader in our industry for the window treatment covering industry, and the conference is outstanding. Next is Sarah Danielli, episode number 91. Sarah is the CEO of My Doma Studio. And Sarah explained in her podcast episode how, she was an interior designer and she actually specialized in renovations and remodeling and so forth. But her early experience as an interior designer was working for other firms that sort of just tossed her into the deep end of the water and said, run these projects and do these things. And they had no systems for them. And so Sarah, being an organized person, developed her own systems. And as each week and month and year went by, she perfected these systems. And as she went from one position to another, she brought them with her and she reinstated them. And she learned how to run very effectively well-managed projects because of these systems that she developed. And then people started to ask her about her systems. Colleagues that she was meeting at different events were asking, how do you do that? And how does this work? And, how can I set that up for my interior design business? And her husband happens to be a computer programmer, geeky guy, right? And so she described in the program how one night she just looked at him and said, I think I might be onto something here. I really think that what happened was, I should back up a little bit, because she would come up with what she wanted to have happen and he would make a way for it to happen just for her to use. And then we get to the part where she says, I think, I might be onto something here. A lot of people are asking for this and a lot of people need this. And there is a real need for this in the marketplace for interior designers to be able to do all of the work that they need to do and all the details that they need to coordinate in an organized way, just like I needed. And so they sat there and they talked about it, and they, again, listened to their intuition, followed their gut, followed the dream, and they have My Doma Studio now, about to hit its 2-year anniversary, and it is an insanely successful platform. They have clients all over the world in it. And I just recently spoke with Sarah. The episode is going up fairly soon. They have all these new developments coming for it. So it's very, very, very exciting that she followed her gut intuition on that. Next is Anna Brockway. Episode number 79. Anna is also a sponsor of the podcast, and she is the owner of Cherish. And Anna has filled a need in the marketplace. She was in the marketplace, and she is one of these same rare women, these rare people that when they see a need, they spring into action rather than think about it, talk about it, what if. But the thing about what Anna did was she also identified that you need to ask yourself, is it a business or a feature? And if you were to create this category or to create this product, what category size does it fall into? So she did her research and she learned that the buying and selling of vintage furniture had a huge, huge marketplace. And so she went about doing it in a way that no one else does it. So think about it. If you wanted to buy a dining room and chairs that you saw from somebody somehow online, whether it be Craigslist or eBay or whatever else, and they live in San Francisco and you live in New York, how are you getting that to you? And that's what troubled Anna. She was like, all of these people all over the world are moving, buying, selling, upsizing, downsizing, and meanwhile all of this quality furniture is just getting lost in the shuffle. And people are either selling it for way, 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 way undervalued just in order to get rid of it so they can move, or they're giving it away, or it's going to landfills. I mean, I don't know where else it could go, but the point is that she figured if she could streamline the process of you being able to have something delivered 2 hours away or 2,000 miles away in good condition with great service and all of it taken care of for you, what would happen? Well, Cherish is what happened. That's what happened. And if you haven't listened to that episode, please go back and listen to that episode, because as an interior designer, you'll learn about the features that are there for you as the trade in Cherish. So don't just listen to my commercials about Cherish on Wednesdays. Listen to the episode number 79 and really do yourself a favor, and you might find that you can find some ways to be more profitable with your clients and take advantage of what Cherish has to offer. But the point is here is the intuition. It's seeing the need in the marketplace and moving on it. And that's what she did. And then we also have episode 85 with Heather Gillette and Mark Cutler. And this was a fun episode too. I really enjoyed meeting both of these people. They're both very, very smart people. And they are the owners of New Decor. Okay, so New Decor is an online interior design service where Heather and Mark employ several interior designers to do e-design for the masses. And this itself came from an intuition moment for Heather. So Heather described in the episode how she had come to a point in her life where she was ready, basically, she didn't say this, but a big girl house with big girl furniture and big girl decorating. And but she's a tech person and she has no skill set for this. And she really wanted it. Her words were she wanted to have a level of excellence in the interior design of her new home. But she also wasn't really prepared to pay the sort of price tag that comes along with hiring one-on-one a very high-level luxury interior designer. And so she got to thinking, how could it be available for more people? How could luxury and excellent interior design be available for more people? And with her tech background, she started kicking it around. How would it work? How could you do it? Well, then New Decor was born, because she didn't just kick it around and think about it and say, well, I don't know how. No, she listened to her intuition. She understood that if she probably had this need, she wanted to have this level of interior design, but she wanted it at a more affordable price. She figured there were other people that would too. And so that's what she did. So she developed this company and she got Mark Cutler involved, because Mark is one of those AD 100 amazing interior designers, and asked him to come on board and develop it with her. And so this is the first intuition moment for Heather, and it's a good one. But then what happens is they're running New Decor, and they've got however many. So let's say they have a dozen interior designers executing projects for all kinds of people all over the country. I imagine the world, but I don't know. And she's watching how each one of them is doing the same process over and over again. Okay, here's, designer Sally, and she has to design a living room for customer Bill and Jane in Iowa. And, Bill and Jane need a 78-inch sofa, and they need, an end chair and a lamp and a cocktail table, and they want it to all look like, rustic farmhouse interiors. I don't know. And then there's, next interior designer, Betty, sitting next to her, and she's sort of designing a very similar thing for another client in Florida. But they're both going through the process from beginning to end of first finding the sofa, then comparing the price, and then putting it into the budget, and then finding the end table, and then finding the lamp. And, because Heather is really brilliant, she was calculating the minutes and the hours that were being duplicated, and, she was not overpaying, but double basically paying. And how could she make the projects more profitable? And how could she streamline it using technology? And then Designer Inc. was born. And so Designer Inc., in their words, is basically High Point Market in your computer. And so what happens is to the trade only. So new decor is to the retail consumer. But now she develops Designer Inc. because she figures if she could use it for her interior design staff, well, hello, so could all of the rest of you take advantage of this. So she and Mark set out to develop Designer Inc. And so now what happens is, whether it's their staff or your staff, you simply can put into the search, 78-inch sofa, blue, I don't know, tufted, and price point. And boom, if there's 30 of them in the world, 30 of them are going to come up on your computer. If there's 1,000 of them in the world, 1,000 of them are going to come up on your computer. And the really cool thing is they streamline the process so that a quick look gives you the retailer, the wholesaler that it comes from, the price that it is, if it's in stock, all of that stuff. And then if you want, you can click through and go to that wholesaler's price and purchase. So what I mean is, if a Kravet fabric comes up on a curated Kravet sofa and, it looks good to you, you click on it. And if you've opened an account with Kravet already, you're going to click right through to the eDesign trade site and you can purchase it. So it really, 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 really is a double example of seeing a need, understanding that she was the person, that they were the people that could fulfill it, and moving on it and acting on it. And so this is the lesson of this whole section, this number 5 section. All righty. We are moving on to number 6, our last and final lesson that I feel like has come out of the podcast. And it's really, I've listed it as last, but it is the number 1 lesson. It is the reason that I launched the podcast, because this is what it is. Interior design is a business first. If it's not a business first, it's a hobby, and it's an expensive hobby, and it's a trying hobby. If you're not making money at it, it's why? If you're not making money out of it, just have fun and do it for your friends and your mom and your mom's friends. But if you've opened up a business, then business comes first. That's what it has to be. If you run the business part of it, then you get to do the fun part of putting all the pretty things together. And so we've had several guests that I thought emphasized and echoed various principles or ideas that I feel were really just really great business ideas, or expressed how it has to be a business first. So, of course, the first one I have to mention is Kimberly Selden. The business in her company is Business of Design. Of course, we all know that Kimberly Selden is a luxury interior designer with offices in Santa Monica, California, and Toronto. So there's that whole side of the business of her business to admire and to, really be in awe of. But she also has Business of Design. And the Business of Design is a membership site. It's a coaching site. It has a platform there with all sorts of courses and webinars that you can take to literally drill down to every single aspect of your design business to help you run it more profitably and more efficiently. Kimberly was on both episodes number 112 and 144. And honestly, you really do have to listen to her episode. She's so smart and so talented and just really, well, she speaks your language because she does what you do every day. A lot of times I have coaches on that are coaches from outside the field, which, hello, yes, totally valuable. But she speaks your language and she understands day to day what you're going through. So that does add an extra level of value to that. And just a couple of things, I honestly can't know how many to list the lessons. She talks about the flat fees. She has her new book this past winter that came out in February or January of 2017. And she talks about flat fees in that book. And then in some of the podcasts, she talked about scope creep, and she talked about setting up trade days, and she has 15 steps to running a profitable project. The list honestly goes on. Do yourself a favor and check out businessofdesign.com. You will not be disappointed. And she also has recently launched a podcast where she just talks to you. She sometimes does interviews all about the business of design. So I can't recommend her highly enough. The next one is Sandra Funk of House of Funk. Sandra was on the show twice, episode number 2 and episode 145. Now, if you are a loyal listener of the podcast, you know that Sandra and I work together, that I am very happy, honored, and privileged that I am her window treatment vendor. And so I mentioned Sandra quite a bit throughout the year because, of course, I work with her closely and I know her to be an extremely savvy business person. I watch it in person, up close, every single time we work together. And so her episodes, the number 2 episode, she talked about her systems and she talked about the way she structures a project. I remember one of the things that she discussed is, and I thought it was particularly important, is that even if a friend, an associate, somebody that she knows from her community, maybe it's the mother of one of her kids' friends or somebody in the junior league or the PTA, that line where you're friends but you're not quite friends, or even she did mention true friends, you know what I mean, true friends. She still has them go through her entire process exactly the way a unknown potential client would. And she discussed the reason for that is because she wants that quote unquote friend, acquaintance to respect the process by paying their bills on time and honoring the meetings and the appointments that are made and meeting the obligations of approving or disapproving, parts of the project. And she basically expressed, how can I expect them to handle all of their part like a quote unquote real client if I haven't treated them like a real client from the time they walk through the door? And so I thought it was a particularly poignant lesson because I think that it's easy for any of us to understand how we could let our guard down and we could, sort of let them in the back door instead of the front door. But of course you can see easily, and I'm sure many of you have experienced how that has not served you. So that's a great discussion there. And then episode 145, she came back and she talked about how she rebranded her company from Funk Design Studio to House of Funk and all of the implications of it and the reasons for it. And it was very, very fun, interesting interview. So you should listen to both of those. And then we have number 36. It was Susan Brunstrom. And Susan, I loved Susan's conversation. She had so many valuable tips. She really does run a nice firm out there. And I've mentioned this also throughout the year. One of the things that struck me most in what Susan does is that of all the parts of her project, of all the parts that are in their system for running a project, one of the things that is the final piece of running a project after the install, after the reveal, after all the fun and photographs and everything is done, Susan then rounds back with the client and invites them to have lunch with her. And she sits down at a nice lunch and they chit-chat and, I'm sure they're both basking in the project and everything. But then she asks them, what did you like about working with my firm? What didn't you like about working with my firm? And she sets the environment in a way that her client knows that they can be truthful with her because she truly wants to know. And she explained in her episode how she has taken things from these conversations with clients and made changes in her business, and they've made her business better for it. So I thought that was a particularly strong tip and something that if you happen to miss it during the year that you needed to know. All righty. Next, we have my gal, Krista Cooper. You know, I love Krista Cooper. I met her quite by accident last year. I was doing my Google search for interior design business coaches, yada, yada. And Krista Cooper came up, and I reached out to their firm and asked if she would be on the program. And she said yes. She had no idea what to expect, what to do, like a lot of you don't. But when we got on the phone that first time, it was just like I knew her my whole life. And she just rocked my world with how smart she was on teaching people and coaching them on how to run good interior design firms. And so Krista has been on the show 5 times. Episode 24, we talked about how to bill out. No, episode 24 was the introductory episode. So we just learned about her business and all the things that she does and how the ways that she supports interior designers. But then we had episode number 45 where we talked about how to bill out using hourly fees. Great discussion. The thing about Krista's episodes is they're very linear. So we have a great time and it's all, fun and games, but they're like, you need a pen and paper in your hand because she's going to boom, and go down through and do this and do this and do that and don't do this. So these are great shows. So number 45, we talked about how to bill out using hourly fees. And then episode 60, we talked about managing work-life balance. And when I say work-life balance, I don't mean like get yourself to a yoga class. Krista broke it out from a financial standpoint. So she explained how you sit down at the beginning of the year and decide what you want your work-life balance to be. And then you structure your firm to support that. It's a very eye-opening interview. So it's not your typical life-work balance where you're feeling stressed, you're feeling chaotic, and she's giving you a little, nudge in the back to get to yoga. It comes from a point of planning and it comes from the point of finances. And it's a really, really good episode. And then we had episode 81 where she talked about build your story and build your brand. Another really good episode. Loved it. It's the beginning of your firm. You need to understand who you are. We talked about it with Fred Burns last week in the Power Talk Friday last week. What's your you? What's your $1 million word? And this is all building on that concept, figuring out what you bring to the table, what sets you apart. So it's a great discussion. And then recently, episode 150, Krista sat down and detailed for us the things that you have to do at the beginning of the year to set the tone, set the table, set the goals for your coming year's firm. Okay. So it's, again, truly actionable, like pen and paper, be ready. So, all righty. Then we have episode 71 with Dr. Ellen Fisher. And Dr. Ellen Fisher is the Dean of the New York School of Interior Design. And she had a lot of great advice for helping you sort out the things that are the stumbling blocks. And so what she said was that what she finds the main reasons interior designers have trouble being profitable are that you consistently undervalue your time, that you don't charge for the hours that you work, that you have a hard time recognizing how to keep your pipeline filled, and that you don't place enough emphasis on marketing. And so these are all very insightful tips. And these are things that if you are guilty of any one of them, you got to lock it down. You got to figure out a way to overcome these obstacles so that you can let your talent be out there in the world. That's the only way you get your talent out in the world is if you run your business well, right? So, and she said, she also, she gave some advice for you as an interior designer when you're going to go out and look to hire interns and junior designers for your firm. And I thought I would share that because that is a big part of running a well-run business. And she said that when you are hiring somebody, particularly an intern, she said to be very clear and set tangible goals and objectives for the time period that you expect the intern to be there, because this will lead to a more productive work experience for both them and you. She also said that you need to teach, train, monitor, and evaluate performance. And this goes for an intern or a junior designer or a design assistant. Teach, train, monitor, and evaluate. Okay? You have to do all of these things for your employees, and that's how you help them be successful. And if they're successful, they help you to be successful. And the last thing that she said was, and I thought it was a great way to encapsulate her advice, fuzzy objectives equal fuzzy experience. I mean, seriously, doesn't that just put it all crystal clear? Fuzzy objectives equal fuzzy experience. So if you don't give clear objectives to your employees, then you're probably not going to get clear results. It's sort of like that. So very smart lady. All righty. And the last one is our episode number 6 with Erica Ward. Also a fabulous lady. I found Erica a year and a half ago in October before the podcast was anywhere near launched, and I was looking at different businesses and different designers and looking at their websites, and I just was like, whoa, this is some lady out there, and she is. And Erica and I have also become friends over the last year. And one of the things that I remember in the conversation with Erica is that she said that she definitely attributes the success of her firm, and I said, her mini empire, let's be real, to her expertise and knowledge in business management. And she really said in her episode, educate yourself in this area. Do everything you can to broaden and enhance your business acumen. She said, because if you do that, you will set the proper foundation for a business to grow on. You see, she said, and if you have a solid business foundation and that's all set up, then you can explore your talent and create the fantastic spaces for your clients. And that's really the whole message of the podcast. And that is what I'm helping and trying and hoping that we do here for you every week, is to help you figure out ways to make the business end of it less fuzzy, less stressful, less complicated, so that you really can come in and do the things that you love to do, which is to create those amazing places and those amazing spaces that I see on Instagram and that just wow me what you guys are doing out there. So that is the roundup for my presentation. And of course, I mentioned it last week on Friday. I'll just say it again today. The actual presentation, we were given 13 minutes to do. So I raced through it. I touched on a lot of this, but I didn't go into this detail. So even if you were there, you didn't hear all of this. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that it helps you. And I do want to mention that we have set up the new email questions at windowworksnj.com. questions@windowworksnj.com, because I love that you communicate with me through all the different ways. But unless it's a simple, hey, high five, or I like that, if it's something you need me to react to, talk to, engage with you on, or help you with, please start to direct them there, because I am having difficulty keeping track of all of these back messages and making sure that I don't leave anybody hanging, and I would never want to do that. And then the other thing is, I'll just say that my mother pointed out to me that she felt like I wasn't very clearly explaining how you can get on our email list, because I was saying text 2 and then the number. And so she thought the number was 244999. And when I listened to it, she's right. So I'm going to explain this one more time. I'll probably explain it a lot of times, but I'm going to explain it again now. And what it is if you would like to be on our email list. Every Wednesday, we send out an email that tells you the guests that are on the show this week, a little bit about the show. If there's any events coming up, we tell you about the events that we are having, either at my showroom or in Manhattan, or if I'm going to be at a meetup at somewhere. We tell you about that. And we also have information about our sponsors there. So you can go to the website, which is www.windowworks-nj.com/podcast, and there is a place there to click and sign up. However, but you can easily do it from your telephone. So in the phone number field, you would enter the number 444999. Okay, so you enter just the number 444999. And then in the space where the text message goes, you just put the word Design Biz. So it's lowercase, no spaces, DESIGNBIZ. Okay, so that will take you to a little thing that says, hey, you want to be on our email list? That's awesome. Now put your email address here, and then you will just text your email address, and then it just magically comes right to our email. So it's kind of a cool little nifty thing. So you are going to put the numbers 444999 into your phone where the phone number goes, and then in the text space, just put the word Design Biz, and it'll all just happen easily for you. So, and we do have events coming up. We have Sarah Daniele coming in from my Doma studio on May 15th, and that will be at our showroom in Livingston, and on the website, www.windowworks-nj.com/podcast, you will have an Eventbrite link there to sign up and RSVP. The event is free. It is a hands-on workshop. It is bring your laptop, sit down, and get ready to work. Of course, I'm going to feed you first. I'll give you a little bit of lunch before we get going. But because it's free, I definitely need you to RSVP because I had to cap it at 30 people. And it would be really swell if you RSVP to come. And if you're not going to come, let me know you did RSVP, but you're not coming now. Because that's a big thing. You know, I don't want to charge for it, but somehow when you don't charge, people sign up and they don't show up. And, you know, Sarah's flying in from Canada for this. So anyway, but it's going to be really cool. And if you have any trepidation about how to use my Doma or what to do or how it can help your business, and you are local enough to come, please jump in on this and do it. And if you don't have my Doma studio already, right there at the event, you're going to be able to sign up for a free trial so that you can use it during the whole workshop. So don't worry about that. All righty. So I think that's it for today. I truly thank you tons for showing up and for listening. There have been a few more reviews on iTunes this past week from Marina and from Jen Bowen and Susan Winterstein from Savvy Giving Design put a review in recently. So I definitely read them all, and I love and I value them very much. And I do appreciate that you do that, and you talk to me that way, and you let me know it's working. And of course, as I always say, it is terrific when you let me know in every other way, but when you let me know that way, it helps me grow the podcast, because I specifically point to these when I talk to sponsors. I tell them, look at what they say. Aren't they amazing? So, alrighty. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day. Thank you for joining me again today for another episode of A Well-Designed Business. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks in Livingston, New Jersey, your trade resource for custom window treatments and awnings. Learn more about WindowWorks at www.windowworks-nj.com. All of our music is original music by Room 2 Productions. Please contact us if you want to learn more about original music for your business or your events.